All right, our coverage continuing of the Trump administration's policies. A live look at the White House, where it's 10:25 in the nation's capital. One thing I was tracking overnight is this news about the National Guard. They say they're planning to train hundreds of troops in all 50 U.S. states in order to be part of something called a rapid response force. It's going to focus on civil disturbance missions by the start of next year. That's according to two U.S. officials who spoke with Reuters about it this week. This, of course, comes as President Trump has increasingly embraced using the military to support his domestic agenda, including deploying troops to cities like Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. Quick reaction forces. A lot of questions, a lot of people online asking us what exactly that means. Retired Marine Intelligence Officer, National Security Analyst, and host of the Strat podcast, Hal Kempfer, is here. Hal, given that each state's guard force is already, from my understanding, maintaining quick response capabilities for emergencies and other things of that sort, what's changing given the new guidance that's being reported on?
You know, Austin, when this first came out, I had to look at it and I go, is this really something new, or are we just kind of renaming what we already have? The National Guard already has what are called National Guard reaction forces, not quick reaction, but reaction forces. With that said, in the National Guard Bureau's description, it talks about quick response, and as part of what they do, along with dealing with civil unrest. And with at the Center of Domestic Preparedness, National Guard units undergo a 2-week program of instruction that trains them to do kind of what this unit is actually asked to do. So all of the stuff, all the components are already kind of there already. Now, within each of the 10 regions, the FEMA regions, that's federal FEMA regions across the United States, there's also something the National Guard has called Homeland Response Forces, HRFs, or HRFs, or HRFs, as they call them. I've worked with HRFs for, well, pretty much since the HRFs were originally designed in a variety of exercises all over the country. And they do consequence management. Primarily, we're set up to deal with something dealing in the weapons of mass destruction realm, what we call CBRNE, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, high-yield explosive type events, although they can be used for other things as well. So those are out there as another force. Those are already embedded. So you have 10 FEMA region things, you have all the states and the 4 territories have their forces. And then, of course, there's also a special MP battalion, or battalion minus. It's a force that's in Washington, D.C., which is a federal district. So those are already there. So the question is, are they just renaming what is already there using the original components? And that's where it's not clear. It does sound like they're going to send a lot of gear out to help them to deal with civil unrest, but it's really not clear. It's saying 23,000, but they're not. I didn't see anything that said they're going to add 23,000 troops. It's simply taking existing capabilities and dividing it, redesignating it, and developing new command relationships.
So are these troops going to be on standby? Is that the right way to phrase it? How would you put it?
Well, that's another thing I looked at. I didn't see anything that said they're going to be on active duty. All right. So what there will be is probably, as near as I can figure out, and this is how the HRFs are set up, and as near as I can tell, this is how the reaction forces are set up as well. The National Guard, NGRFs, they are what's called M-Day soldiers. They are they're in their regular, they're in reserve, if you will, and they can get activated. Now, with that, some of these units have very tight timelines. For example, they have to be able to activate a certain number, like 125 or something, within 6 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours. They have different timelines to do that. And the way they normally manage that is certain units will be on a higher readiness recall status than other units. So if you're on that status, you're on a pretty quick callback. In other words, you get the call, you got to move very quick, which means that you may be carrying your gear with you in your car going to work or whatever, not your weapons and all that stuff, but all your other gear that you might need to quickly go to wherever your activation site is, your armory or wherever, and then quickly spring into action to do whatever needs to be done. So it looks like it'll be something along those lines, which most of these units like this are set up that within 24 hours, the entire unit's been activated. And what they're talking about is each state will have a unit is this quick response force that would be 500. And then with some of the smaller states, I think like Delaware, it's 250. Alaska, which is a really big state but not a big population, I think it's 350. And then if you go all the way out to Guam, and I've actually worked extensively with the Guam National Guard, they're only doing 100. So it's a smaller force, but for all the other states, it'll be about 500.
This is the way the Wall Street Journal puts it. The Pentagon has ordered the National Guard to create quick reaction forces in every state and territory by January that are trained and equipped to respond to riots and civil unrest within the U.S. Hal, is the military going to have a regular presence in U.S. cities for non-war and non-disaster situations from now on?
Well, that's something the National Guard has already been doing, and that's why when you see this, particular way the Pentagon has talked about this by January, the only way to do this by January is to take forces that are pretty much already trained, and then you just simply redesignate them and say, okay, there's your QRF. And normally, by the way, a QRF for any type of, if you have a mission out there, for example, if you have reconnaissance, and I used to be in reconnaissance, if you were out there, it would be normal. There would be a designated QRF that could come out and rescue you if something, was to happen where you needed a big force to come out there and provide security and to get you out of there. So that's not an unusual thing, but we are seeing a change with the National Guard, a bigger role in this domestic mission, which is interesting because when the current configuration of the National Guard was set up in the 90s after the end of the Cold War, the National Guard ended up picking up all these big war combat units, things like tank brigades and a lot of infantry units and a lot of combat units. And for whatever reason, a lot of the support units and things that you're thinking of here ended up going into the Army Reserve as opposed to the National Guard, which seemed kind of strange because the National Guard has that mission where they can be activated by the governor to go do civil support stuff. So it always seemed to me that there was I understood the politics of why the Guard wanted to do this, but it always seemed to me that there was a kind of a strange mix of the types of units that they had as opposed to the types of units they needed for all the mission spectrum they do. So this might be realigning the Guard to do more civil support type things, which I will tell you the Guard in the early 90s was not really interested in doing that much.
Hal Kempfer is a retired Marine intelligence officer, the host of the Strat podcast. You can listen to the Strat podcast anywhere podcasts are available. Good to see you, Hal.
Okay, good to see you, Austin.